Hello. Today we're going to be talking about nouns, and I'm going to break this up into two parts. The first part is going to be this video, which is covering proper and common nouns and the differences, along with collective nouns. And then we will do a second part video, later on separately. So what I'd like for you to do is to download the pre-test. There are 10 questions. Follow the directions, and you're bolding or underlining the various kinds of nouns. If it's a proper, it's one way. If it's a common noun, it's another. So on and so forth. And I'd like for you to pause the video now and go and do that. And I will go over the answers momentarily. But we need to figure out where you are at on the spectrum of, I don't need to spend much time with this, or, oh, I thought I knew it, but I'm kind of confused. So the pre-test is very valuable, even if it's not for a grade. So please take a quick, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes if it takes that long, and do that. And once you have the answers, then resume the video. Thank you. All right, so now we have the pre-test to grade, and as you see, there were 10 questions, the proper common nouns and then the collective nouns. And so you don't have this file to open, and so we'll just go over it together. Please make any changes. Do it with like a highlighted section or color it in a different way so that don't just change it because you'll come back and look and it'll look like you had it right all along. We need to just find out if there are patterns to what you know or what you don't know. And more than likely, I would think that if you make just one or two little blips, okay, that's good. If we miss more than that, we should probably focus more so on the lesson coming up in a little bit. So common and proper nouns in number one. Let me see if I can make this a little bit larger for your screens here. Number one, lions, cats, members, family. Those are all basic, common, lowercase. All proper nouns are going to be capitalized. That doesn't mean every word that you see is capitalized is one, because at the beginning of a sentence it might not be. You know what I mean? But they are very specific nouns. There's one unique aspect of them. Number two, Superdome, New Orleans. So those are propers. Arena is just a normal common. This is where the New Orleans Saints play. And number three, students, event. Those are common. They're not naming anybody. So those are bolded. Four, Bill, a name, proper noun, has been saving his money. Money is a common because he wants to buy a new guitar. Okay, guitar is the object, it is the noun. Nouns, person, place, things, or ideas, right? And number five, Egypt is home to some of the most beautiful structures in the world. Egypt, that's a one place, proper noun. Home, structures, world. Those are all nouns, and those should be bolded. So take a look at those. How many of them did you miss? Maybe you got three of the four bolded in the first one, for example, and you're like, oh, I got it. I just missed one. So then you can tell yourself, I just need to slow down a little bit. But please make sure you save this document and highlight it or change color fonts or something so that you can see what you got wrong. Collective nouns, and we'll talk about these momentarily in the lesson. Mark each collective noun below. If it's singular, then bold it. If it's plural, then underline it. And we'll talk about the difference in a little bit. Some might find these easy, some might find them tricky. So you have to identify them first. So a collective noun, when we have a large number of things encapsulated and labeled by one name. All the players on the team, but it's one team, even though there's a bunch of people on it. So the swim team travels to Plano once a month. So it's swim team is bolded, it's collective, and it is bolded because it is singular, because they travel. It's a one team that travels. And so that's the tricky part with collectives. You got to figure out, is it are we talking about multiples or just one of that thing? Even if that one thing deals with a bunch of other people and entities, which the swim team would have a bunch of people, but it's just one team. If it said, the Atlanta swim teams traveled, well, then that's going to be a lot more of them. So that would be plural. But Number two, the marching band buys their own instruments. Marching band, there's a lot of people collectively in a band. Now we have to figure out if we're talking about them in the singular or plural, and there are some clues. We'd see instruments is plural, and so we're talking about multiple, deals with purchasing. Number three, the ant colony. So that would be the collective. It's bolded because it is singular, because what does a colony do? It stores food for the long winter. That one colony stores food. Number four, the class presents their speeches. The class is a collective. Yes, there are 25, 35 students in that class, but they present their speeches, presents their speeches, and we see that is a plural. So just like we had instruments up here, that is a little clue there. So that one is underlined. And then the crowd. The crowd is a collective group of people, so that is there. The crowd wants to hear another song. Collectively, they want to hear one song. They want to hear, and so they are acting out as a group, just like the swim team did up above when they traveled. So this is a section that might have just been a little bit tricky. And if you missed one or two, that's okay. It's not for a grade, but that would be one where you want to practice some with the upcoming practice activities as we move forward. Okay, now we're going into our lesson. So based on how you did in the pre-test answers, you should be able to hone in on the areas that you need to spend a little bit more time with. If you did perfect, it wouldn't hurt just to skim over this stuff again, but definitely we'll all be practicing it a little bit. But again, it's important to identify, remember, study smarter, not harder. And so if there are 10 different facts about nouns that you only struggle with two of them, why study for all 10 if you were really good with them? So just focus on those two. So that's what we identified. So the PDF, open it up. Once you download it, you should be able to twist it because I know for some reason it shows up vertical when I opened it, but I can turn mine so like you see it on my screen. And so you can follow along that way. And we'll start with the kinds of noun. Again, a noun is a word that names a person, place, thing, or idea. You've had this stuff for years and years. But again, use it as a quick refresher. I can't stress enough how much just looking and comparing between the two or three samples that they give will go a long way to speed this up for you, I think. And then the more time you need, the more exposure you need to it. That's where I would focus. So there's some great examples of people and different types of people, and then places and things. And ideas might be the one that's a little bit more abstract for people to think about. You see democracy, and if somebody has pride, you can't touch that like you can the other stuff. Somebody's with maturity or progress. So those might be the ones that you might slip by from time to time and oh yeah, that's one. But just kind of spend a little bit extra effort there as needed. As we said, a common noun names any person, place, thing, or idea. Proper noun, a particular person, place, thing, or idea for a very, very specific one. And so there are some good examples there. Edgar Allan Poe, Statue of Liberty. If it was just poet or statue, that would be common, but it names a very specific one. Okay. And so we come down here and we talk about, we didn't have it on the pre-test, but concrete nouns and abstracts, a great little side-by-side just to show you the concrete things you can touch. Okay. Abstract, you can't really touch them. Okay. Courage, time, you can't really touch time. History, education, comedy, tragedy, friendship. Those are all nouns, but they are abstract, meaning they don't exist in the physical realm world. So concrete, you can touch all those, and then proper nouns are specific people, names, places, things that you can identify. So check those out, and that's a great box just to kind of focus on, find connections between the columns, and that should really help with your overall understanding of it. Compound nouns, again, this wasn't in the pretest, but since we're here, we can quickly talk about it. That's where it's one word like storybook, more than one word, ice cream. A compound noun also joined by a hyphen. So there are different ways. It's multi-words put together, either right next to each other, like storybook, right by each other, like it says ice cream, or it has a little hyphen in between, runner up. The runner up to the winner. And so again, a good little box there so you can kind of see dining room. Dining room, yeah. Is dining an adjective in front of the noun room? Well, it's one. that's what we're talking about. As a compound, it's a great example, just like living room or family room or dining room. It is a noun, but it's a compound, so it takes two. So that's the different. Then you see a few of the other hyphenated. Those aren't as readily seen at this level. So check that out as much as you need. Here's some practicing sentences you can do, and you should notice there's some familiarity here. Some of these we already had on the pre-test, but the others you can practice just skimming around for common nouns or proper nouns, and we'll have some practices in a little bit. All right, now we're going to move on to singular and plural nouns, which leads into collective nouns in a little bit. Singular, it just names one person, place, thing, or idea, or a plural noun, more than one. Again, a great chart, a great box, side by side of how we go from singular to plural. In that first box there with the different endings, and this is stuff that you've known, but it's good to refresh from time to time, especially if you're like, oh yeah, I did kind of want to know how to do that, because we're going to get to possessives in a little bit where we start throwing on apostrophes on things. But this is how we make things plural without possession or making it a contraction. So looking at the word bus, how do we change that? ES, buzz, ES, X on box, ES. And so those nouns ending in the S, Z, CH, SH, or X, we just add ESs. So you want to get those programmed into your mind. The rodeo, studio, radio, just drop an S on them. Okay, when it says if an O is preceded by a vowel. So if there's, EO there at the end or IO, it's going to be an S. A lot of little rules, which makes grammar kind of challenging sometimes to memorize all the different rules and charts. And so I think it's very beneficial to look over examples and try to create some sort of connection in your mind that makes sense for yourself with it, especially when they give you a lot of examples like here. Good. So other examples there, where you can see you just drop that, when to put an S, like day, turkey, toy, days, turkeys, toy, just drop an S. But then why do we change the Y in city and drop it, or diary or penny and make it IES? So look at this side by side there. It's Y when it's preceded by a vowel, you just drop an S. Y preceded by a consonant, that's when you drop an I and put ES. Again, a lot of little rules, but if you can find some similarities between them, it makes a little bit more sense. Now, collective noun, as we were talking about, it names a group of people, animals, or things. Okay, and so what we want to do here is, make sure we pay attention to other clues later on in the sentence that might help you decide. That if we want to talk about other words in a sentence can sometimes help you decide whether a collective noun is singular or plural. It gives you a little bit of a clue. So the team shares the field with its opponent. The team is the collective, like we said earlier. They shares the field with its opponent. Opponent is a singular opponent, and so we know that it's a single team. So team would be singular there. Now the teams share their jokes with one another. We know share their jokes, so we have one another. We have more than one. So you find these clues, and we see that it is plural. So again, the side by side on those examples, I think it's really, really helpful to walk through how you answer them as you prepare, for this upcoming post test and do our practices. All right, now that we have the lesson done over the first two parts of nouns, I want to give you some practice, okay? And with this practice, you do as many of them as you want, as many that you need. You can jump around. If one's boring, you can jump. Some are games, some are quizzes. I just want to give you as much opportunity as you need. And we've already identified with your pre-test, kind of exposing you to the content again and grading it then. And then with the lesson, as much as you needed to focus on that and pay attention to that. And now you're going to get a lot of opportunities to practice that. So take a look at these practice online quizzes. Do as many as you can, as many as you want, until you really, over multiple of them, you really have a good grasp as to what works and what doesn't. And then again, like your pre-test, then you can figure out, okay, I am still struggling with common proper. We can go back to the lesson or ask questions, but you can always go back to your the lesson in the PDF and hone in. Remember, study smarter, not harder, and you will have a greater chance of succeeding, I feel. So check out these links. Spend as much time as you need on them, as you prepare for the upcoming post test. Thank you very much.